Alright, usually I don't do such a blatant sequel to a previous video, but this time it's really, really worth it. About a month ago I put out a video about the subreddit r/Antiwork. Antiwork began as a community where people would post text conversations between them and their shitty bosses. The bosses would always demand something amazingly stupid from the OP. The OP has enough and decides to quit over text, leaving the boss high and dry. It was a cathartic sub, where you got to see stuff like people's rightfully earned and properly scheduled vacations cancelled last minute to cover up a manager's mistake, and then when the manager tries to force the worker to shut up and do as they're told, the worker walks, leaving the manager holding the bag. Everyone's had a shit boss before, we all have felt this way. However, after the community went viral, it rapidly got co-opted by communists, who loudly proclaimed that Antiwork was always communist-oriented, and that the sub was not a repository for funny I quit fuck you boss stories, but instead existed to agitate for anti-capitalist political action. And yes, this is unfortunately what Antiwork morphed into over time. It's just so stupid. Quitting your job and finding a better one isn't socialist praxis. It's liberal capitalism working as intended. You make an agreement with your boss to do X job for Y hours for Z pay. If you can't come to an agreement that you're both satisfied with, then you walk. And that's exactly what the workers did. They walked. They exercised their rights. Just as your employer exercises their rights when they fire you, if you're not upholding your end of the agreement either. Capitalism is an inherently adversarial system. That's a feature of it. It's a good thing. Boss and worker represent two opposing camps, each pulling in their own direction, and a compromise is struck in the middle. If it can't be struck, then there's no deal. This is all how it's supposed to work. Well, the reason I'm talking about this again is because a mod of Antiwork was invited onto Fox News to describe the sub and the movement. You've got to see this shit.
Joining me now is the person who operates this anti-work group.
Oh my god, it really is your average Reddit, they do it for free moderator. You don't think you could have showered before coming on?
All right, so Doreen, why do you like the idea of being home, not working, but still getting paid by corporate America?
Yeah, so there's some misconceptions about the movement. So we're a movement where we want to reduce the amount of work that people feel like they're forced to do.
Dude, look at the smirk on the host's face. He's like, am I literally talking to a teenager who doesn't want to get a summer job?
And so we want to still put in effort, we want to put in labor, but we don't want to necessarily be in a position where we feel trapped. You know, you just quoted from Office Space where that person feels very trapped in their job. I think we're calling for a society where there's less of that. But yeah, absolutely, people still want to do things. They just want to do things where they feel rewarded and they feel like they're in a good spot in their life, and that their job respects them and stuff like that.
That's all pretty reasonable. That's why you quit jobs and move on. Again, working as intended.
You know, there's varying.
So Doreen, but you're not being forced to work. This isn't slave labor. You've applied for a job. You've agreed to the terms and conditions of the employment. And, you know, you can walk away from that job at any time and quit. So I don't understand really what this is about, except it sounds like maybe people are just being lazy. Are you encouraging people to be lazy?
So I think laziness is a virtue in a society where people constantly want you to be productive 24/7.
Yes, I can tell that you think laziness is a virtue. Jesus Christ.
And it's good to have rest. That doesn't mean you should be resting all the time or not putting effort into things that you care about. But I think one of the
What do you think is like a good work day? How many hours is you know, a solid work day in your ideal society?
Sure. I mean, I think as much as people want. I mean, I personally work. I have like a 20-25 hour work weeks, which I think is fairly good. So I would like less work hours.
And what do you do, Doreen?
I'm a dog walker.
A dog walker. Okay.
Yes.
Oh god, I just realized this person's trans. Doreen, yep. Fuck. Well, I guess the dog walker thing makes sense now. Ever since I've made that fucking video, I've been surrounded by dog pills, guys. I see them everywhere I go.
And how old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
Sure, I'm 30.
You're 30. Okay.
Wait, you're 30? Like, fuck. I know I get flack for streaming video games and making YouTube videos for my money, but shit.
And is there something you want to do besides being a dog walker? Do you aspire to do anything more than dog walking, or is that kind of your pinnacle?
I love working with dogs. If I had to do this for the rest of my life, you know, I wouldn't be super complaining. You know, dogs are wonderful animals. But I would love to teach. I would love to.
Oh God! Look at the face on the host. He knows what's going on here.
You know, work with work with people and stuff like that.
What would you teach, Doreen?
Philosophy mostly, just introduction to philosophy, critical thinking, reason, stuff like that.
Okay. Well, I would love to take your class, Doreen. I would just be taking notes the whole time. And you know what? A professor's a very similar schedule than something that you're imagining. So I think that actually might work perfectly for you. Listen, I think this might not be the greatest idea, but who am I to judge? To each their own, they say. It's a free country.
Sure.
Not everything's free, but it is a free country. Thank you so much. Sure. We got to run. We got to pay the bills.
Holy fuck. I know this wasn't an online debate, but Doreen here sure got dumpstered like this was the primetime morning Kumite internet blood sports. Like, the Fox News guy was only asking surface level stuff. It was all softball questions. And the Antiwork mod just fumbled it. All you have to do is say something like, we believe the workers showing the means of production. I mean, these people say that shit constantly everywhere else. What happened? You're commies. Own it. Instead, Doreen walked into an obvious bait and switch, where the Fox News host successfully made the entire movement look like lazy layabouts and bums, because, on at least some level, that's what they are. And the rest of the movement was not happy about it. The video was posted to r/Antiwork, where Doreen, the interviewed mod, responded under the name of AbolishWork. And oh boy, was that video considered a dumpster fire by everybody. AbolishWork said that they're autistic, which is why they kept fidgeting and refusing to look at the camera. Another user asked, did you share the offer for an interview with the other mods beforehand? Did you all decide you were the best person to represent this sub on Fox? If so, that might have been slightly misguided. And AbolishWork replied with, the interview offer was given to the mods via mod mail, and they specifically asked for me. I shared that with the other mods, and they all agreed that I was probably the best to do it because I've done other media. Yeah, that was a big fat whoops. Post-interview, AbolishWork turned into a lightning rod for everything wrong with the anti-work movement, and the entire sub decided that they were public enemy number one. This whole debacle can be summed up with something we've known for a very long time. Moderators are losers. The sub is imploding before our very eyes, exactly what Fox wanted. The mod got softball questions, I can't even blame Fox. Who's the mad lad that stickied this thread? The girls are infighting. The mega thread they created to corral the storm was locked and unpinned inside of 30 minutes. Is there mod infighting? And the answer to that is yes. The mod team of r/Antiwork began actually ripping into each other, with some wanting to bury everything and cover it up, and others venting their disappointment and wanting the community to be able to do the same. Because of AbolishWork's status as a trans woman, it rapidly became the party line that critiquing their interview performance was transphobic, off-topic, and brigading the sub. The users continued to complain, and the mods labeled them all bad actors. Just like any other power-tripping mod in an isolated small community online that blows up, it's a tale as old as time. In fact, a tale far older than the internet. Here's a private conversation between AbolishWork and some of the sub's users. Step down. We don't want you. We don't like you. It's not because you're trans. I'm an ally. I respect your identity. But I don't respect your behavior since the interview. I don't respect how you've made a laughing stock out of us. I don't respect how you failed to communicate any of the philosophies you represent. You made a mistake big enough that you need to step down. Not gonna happen. Your actions are fully admitting that you care more about your status as a mod than you do the community you moderate. We don't like you. We don't want you. Step down. I'm not in this to be liked. If I was, I wouldn't be doing politics, lol. Then what are you in this for? Because it's clearly not in the interest of the community for you to remain a mod. So if you were in it because of the movement, you'd step down, right? What is the reason you're being so thick-headed about this? And don't delude yourself. You're not doing politics. You're the mod of a subreddit and a dog walker. I'm the mod of a political subreddit, lol. We literally gave a ton of aid to the Kellogg strikers. So yeah, it's a political movement. I don't really care if you all don't like me. The larger community and the movement seems to agree that you do not belong in your position anymore. With this in mind, why aren't you stepping down? If your interest really was in the movement, then you'd step aside and let other people lead for a while. You can't be so ignorant to not realize that when a movement has a poor leadership, it's doomed to fail. We're all trying to let you know that you aren't a good leader. So if you really actually cared about the movement, and if you really aren't as thick as people say you are, then why would you not step down? I mean, please, for all of our sake, take your ego out of the equation. I get you're probably feeling bad because you're getting a lot of hate, but try to be objective. Try to take a step back and realize that this is bigger than you. You don't want to be the reason the movement tanked. My ego isn't controlling me. Y'all are being ridiculous, and there has been no vote about whether or not I'm going to be a mod. And even if there was, I wouldn't care. Mods aren't democratically elected, and this isn't a democracy. We may strive for as much user input as possible in certain circumstances, but I'm not going to apologize or resign for a situation that was tainted from the beginning. Now, AbolishWork is an anarchist, I think an anarcho-communist specifically. This is somebody who follows a philosophy of explicit anti-hierarchy and communitarianism. But now that they've got just a single drop of power, literally a drop, it's a fucking Reddit moderator position, they're out here spouting shit like this isn't a democracy, and I'm not going to resign just because it's popular for me to do so. I said it in a previous video, and I'll say it again. There are no anarchists. Anarchism is a philosophy that is fucking stupid. There are people who LARP as anarchists as a means to an end. They want want the slate wiped clean, not to abolish hierarchy, but so that they may build new hierarchy with them at the top unimpeded. That accurately describes every single anarchist out there. Without exception, I trust none of these fuckers.
Revolution! The big helmeted packlets will no longer control us!
Ooh.
I am now packlet leader! Behold, my giant helmet!
Eventually, as the mods of the subreddit finally solidified their stance and united in opposition to their own user base, the user revolt came to a head with this post. Sorry doesn't cut it. You have no power here. You can modify comments, you can delete threads, and that is the extent of the power that you hold as a mod. This is not to attack you, but it is to remind you that you should have no influence over the sub. And if you are having influence over the sub, then there is something immensely wrong. I can't believe how painfully ironic it is that you have some authority and you've exerted it incorrectly, and then immediately refuse to acknowledge it or correct it on this sub, which is literally dedicated to holding those who do exactly what you did accountable. How can you possibly be blind to this painful irony? Well, because they're anarchists. I think I've said this in 10 fucking videos at this point. There are no libertarian socialists. There are only tankies in waiting. The mods banned every single person who criticized AbolishWork, who criticized the mods' handling of the revolt, and who posted it in the Antiwork drama thread on Cringetopia. They basically went scorched earth with this shit. Eventually, the sub was fully closed, and most of the users migrated over to r/workreform, where they continued their communist LARPing and dreaming, while people who just wanted funny I quit stories to have been left out to dry. As of this morning, the Antiwork sub is actually back, but the same mod team is still in charge, and they're still being pretty heavy-handed. It's dead, Jim. But that's not spicy enough of an ending to this story, is it? Surely I've found something else that puts a nice little bow on all of this. This is from AbolishWork's Facebook account. The person accusing me of serial rape The person accusing me of serial rape and I were involved in sexual contact. This scenario involved alcohol on their part, but I had been informed multiple times that it wasn't a big deal. They said they were only tipsy, and that they were consenting to what was happening. I took them at their word, and I will be more responsible in the future when it comes to alcohol and sex. I'm unaware of who I've allegedly raped besides the person making the accusation. The only other person I can think of is a previous partner. I take consent very seriously, and here's that other story. I wrote this a long while ago in case this situation ever happened, and sadly, here it is. I strive to be open and honest. Those who are close to me can verify that I exude those qualities more than any other. It's in that spirit that I make public certain past events within my life. I want to discuss a history I have with someone that I used to know. This was a person with whom I had an ongoing sexual relationship and living arrangement. Eventually, a mix of fundamentally incompatible needs, past trauma unrelated to me, and my issues with impulsive control resulted in a very unhealthy dynamic between us. Due to my dislike of call-out culture, this person will remain anonymous. This individual had past trauma from previous relationships that caused emotional and physical distance between us over the course of months. This led to my needs going unmet, which led to masturbation as an unhealthy coping mechanism. After months of trying to keep myself in check, I began sporadically masturbating while they slept next to me. Even though they stated this made them feel uncomfortable, these events continued to happen until I sought help through therapy. I had woken up one morning with them laying next to me and remembering they felt uncomfortable with me masturbating next to them while they slept. I placed their hand over my boxers. They moved their hand away, and I thought nothing at what happened and fell back asleep. They later woke up and mentioned to me that they had a nightmare involving these series of events. I admitted that it had happened, apologized, and explained that I was half asleep and not in full control of my actions. Lastly, the previously mentioned coping mechanism resulted in this person creating alarms for us so we wouldn't fall asleep together, and thus boundary violations would be minimized. Jesus. Much to my retrospective disgust, my desperation for emotional intimacy led me to shut off the alarms at various points. When I learned how much this harmed this person, I soon went to therapy. Thereafter, I was better able to cope with my impulsive tendencies and thus consistently respect their boundaries. Resulting from my remorse, I made a financial contribution to an organization dedicated to helping people in alternative but abusive relationships. There was discussion between me and this individual of helping with therapy costs. However, given my economic status and their insurance coverage, we decided against it. As well, I've used that unhealthy dynamic as a way to improve myself. My relationships since then have been healthy and mutually beneficial. These events have led me to suffer several symptoms of PTSD, sporadic suicidal ideation, and self-esteem loss. I've done my best to heal by privately talking to multiple friends about this, but I think I need to do more than that. Throughout my life, I have striven to be a respectful and compassionate person. That means that when others are clear about their boundaries, I want to be sensitive to them and respectful of them. And if I discover after the fact that I violated somebody's boundaries, I want to apologize and blah, 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 blah. I am embarrassed and regretful that even after learning how much it harmed them, I still engage in it after the fact. I don't know what coming forward with this information will do, but I hope everyone can still trust me to do what is right and hold myself responsible and accountable when I make mistakes. The only comments I'll be accepting on this thread are clarifying questions and constructive criticisms that are coming from a good and supportive place. Shaming me in an attempt to show that my actions were wrong is both unproductive and unnecessary, as I am well aware of my actions and their lack of morality. I know I shouldn't be laughing, it's sexual assault, but my God, you're presenting this like you're the victim of the sexual assault, but you're the fucking perpetrator. Like, read this garbage again. Due to my dislike of call-out culture, this person will remain anonymous. You're the one who needs to be called out, though. Even by, like, the cancel culture brigade. You're the one who's in the wrong here, not the victim. Jesus Christ. So this person who went on Fox News and single-handedly destroyed a movement, they would lie next to somebody and masturbate, and then grab their arm and move their hand over their dick, even as they were told to stop repeatedly. And when this other person started setting alarms so that they wouldn't be asleep at the same time, you would shut the alarms off and then go back to masturbating. Jesus fucking Christ. Oh my God. The boat has finally sunk and it's still somehow on fire. Why is it always a leftoid sex pest behind this shit anytime something like this happens? This is what happens every single fucking time. You have these people who are LARPing about being communist revolutionaries. They want to overthrow capitalism. They want to seize the means of production. And yet all they do is infight, because it turns out that they're all just scumfucks. And as soon as one of them is actually publicly revealed as a scumfuck, they all turn on each other. Because there are no actual virtuous actors within this movement. But you know what? I've solved the mystery. The true reason behind why the mods of r/Antiwork closed the subreddit is that modding the community was just too much work.